everyone, welcome to the newest edition of Absolute On Air. Today we're going to be talking about cracking the code, benefits of rich snippets and how to achieve them. Today I'm joined with Andy, Connor and Harold. If you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy, so I'm the head of SEO for Absolute Digital.
I'm Connor. I've been working at Absolute for 8 years, currently a senior SEO account manager, working alongside these guys here.
And I'm Harold. I'm SEO Executive here at Absolute, working alongside the team of SEO here.
Great stuff. So let's get straight into the first question then. So first up, we've got, what is Google's definition of a rich snippet?
Right, so Google's definition of a rich snippet are structured data markups that we can add to the existing HTML. So what that does, it in turn allows search engines to better understand what information is contained on each web page.
So yeah, I think the important part about that as well is understanding. Well, so that's Google's definition of a rich snippet, but what does that mean to you as a website owner? So in terms of that markup on your website, what that converts into is features in the search results. So additional features, so not just the normal 10 links that you see on a page in Google when you can see your search results, but the extra bits you see in there. So there's lots of different types of them, depending on exactly what you're doing. But that's what it then converts into. So that's what it converts to for a user. That's what the user's seeing. That's the difference it makes for your website.
Yeah, exactly that. And there's a lot of benefits to these rich snippets, which we'll go through a little bit later on. So leads us nicely on to the next question, which is, why do rich snippets hold significant importance?
Okay, yeah, so I'll jump in on that one. So basically, because they hoover up clicks, they just pick up extra clicks. They pick up more clicks than a standard, just normal link in the search results. As I mentioned, how they display in the search results, they look a little bit different. It adds something to your search result. So by looking a little bit different, they stand out, makes your results stand out more, which grabs users' attention, means they're more likely to click on and click through into your site. So ironically, I find Google originally created them as a way to answer users' queries directly in the search results, so users didn't have to click through to websites. They could search for something, they'd get a bit of extra information, and thinking of sort of featured snippets here, which were the first to be introduced. It gives you a bit of extra information rather than just the normal sort of page title and meta description that you normally see. And that idea was it would answer the users' questions. They didn't need to go further, but they pick up more clicks than pages that don't use them. So far from actually answering the user's question and stopping them there, it actually encourages more people to visit your site.
Yeah, exactly that. And just to add on to that, obviously they also take up a little bit more space on search results, which is normally what leads to them clicking on your result over the others. So makes you stand out more, as Andy was saying, but as well as that, obviously taking up more kind of real estate on the SERP. So that's obviously drives users' eyes to yours sort of result over other competitors. So another benefit that it holds. Great stuff. So next question that I've got is, what types of content can appear as rich snippets?
Yes, so I don't mind diving in on that one, to be fair. So I mean, there's multiple different areas of rich snippets that you can look at. I mean, rolling on from what Andy and Lewis was just saying, you can add more data to Google search results. Obviously, when you go into any sort of result, you can see things like potentially some reviews, so you can see what people are potentially saying about products or pages in particular, which would then give you entice you a little bit more to click onto that page because they're a little bit more trustworthy. Or you could look at potentially seeing things like recipes or even events. So instead of having to directly click onto a page to see some events, you can see before you even click on it that there are events available on that page. So just little things like that. There are so many different areas of features of rich snippets that you can look at. But ultimately, the main benefits from doing so is, I mean, as these guys were saying, you get more visibility. Your click-through rate is more likely to have a bit of an increase, and ideally it gives you a little bit of a better ranking in the long run because you're giving Google that little bit more information.
Brilliant. Yeah, couldn't have put it better. So yeah, like I say, there's a lot of information that can display there. Pricing and things like that can also be included. So it's all information that just helps to kind of give users an understanding before even clicking onto your search result, and yeah, can further entice them to do so. So they're definitely something that's worth looking at. So yeah, again, leads us on to the nice question, which is some of the most commonly most common types of rich snippets found.
Yeah, so I don't mind diving in on that one. So featured snippets are by far the most common, but other common types can include product snippets, review snippets, FAQ snippets as well. So it sort of entirely depends of what your site is trying to achieve. If your site is very information heavy, you're probably more likely to target FAQ snippets. And again, just to build onto the point of sort of acquiring more real estate in SERPs. However, if you are an e-commerce website and you have products on the site, you may be looking to target product snippets instead. Also, just to build on that, if you have a site that's quite heavy on services, you implement service snippets and even review snippets to the services. So if you have a bunch of reviews for that specific service, then review snippets is something you'd probably be taking advantage of.
Definitely. So yeah, the next question that we've got up then is what are the advantageous types of snippets?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that one. So yeah, they all snippets hold some advantage. So they all help in terms of they make your results stand out, and that helps attract clicks. So they all have that specific advantage. But then the different types of snippets have different advantages that they help with. So, for example, featured snippets, as we heard from Harold, they're by far the most common type of rich feature, and you'll have all seen them. If you're not sure what a featured snippet is, it appears at the top of search results, and it's normally it looks very similar to a normal search result, but it's bigger. You get more information in it, and usually it displays a bit of an excerpt from the page, so a bit of page text. It might be a list, some occasions even a data table. Well, it just essentially displaying a bit more information from the page. It gives a bit more in-depth answer than the meta description might. So the feature snippet, the main advantage there is it gives you a shortcut to the top of the search. So it gives you a shortcut to the top of the search results. If you hold that, you are at the top of the search results. So you're beating everybody else out. Also, by being a bit bigger, pushes everybody else down a little bit. So there's fewer results on screen. So that gives the person viewing the page a few less options to click on outside of your own. And then, yeah, there's, like I say, there's different types. So Harold also mentioned sort of review snippets. So getting review stars on your results. So that means that in your search result, in the result that appears on the page, there'll be a review, five review stars that give your review score for your products. That can help build trust with a user before they even click through to your site. They can see that your site reviews well, that product reviews well, is well thought of before they've even clicked through. Site links are another common one that you can see. So that takes up more real estate in the SERP. So it adds additional links below your result to go to other pages. They're most commonly seen when people are doing branded searches, but it pushes down other results, so it takes up more real estate, so you're more likely to capture that click. FAQs can help you appear for a wider range of searches, so you can appear for things that you aren't directly targeting but are still related to your products, and people are searching for that. You can appear under an FAQ for that and your result, and that might capture a click through there. Local pack, similar to featured snippets, but for localized results appearing in that local pack. That, again, it's another shortcut towards the top of the search. While the local pack often isn't the first result, it's usually sort of third result. There's a couple of results and then the local pack. So appearing high in that can jump you up to the top of the search results and help you pick up more clicks. So yeah, it really does depend on the actual type of rich feature that you're targeting, but all of them have some advantage, and depending on exactly what you're trying to achieve would depend on which ones you want to go after.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to that as well, I actually had a client recently. They gained a featured snippet, but we went a little bit above and beyond on the page. So we created an infographic for the page, and within the featured snippet, we actually gained the infographic image there as well. So we essentially added value to that featured snippet for users by having the result there, so the answer to their question, but also they had the opportunity to, without clicking on the page, see a bunch of information from the infographic that the client had on the website as well. So it kind of gives you the opportunity to add quite a lot of trust to the page because you're showing your expertise without even allowing users to click onto the page. So yeah, if there's ever an opportunity to go for a featured snippet or something similar, definitely try and go above and beyond, especially if it's a page that you're specifically trying to target.
And then just to build on what Connor and Andy were talking about as well, if we're looking for another real life example, I have actually went ahead and implemented a review schema on a certain number of pages for a client. And within just 1 month, I can actually see that the click-through rate for those pages have increased significantly. So again, just highlighting the advantage of a review schema in particular in real life scenario.
Brilliant. Yeah, completely agree with everything said then. It just shows kind of some of the advantages of rich snippets and how they can increase the click-through rate to web pages, and kind of the importance of going for them in some senses. So the next one we've got is when is it recommended to earn one? And I think this is quite an important question because a lot of people would just say it all the time, which of course, I mean, there's always a reason to go for a rich snippet, but also do need to kind of make sure it's in line with the strategy and the client's goals. So if it's like an e-commerce site that only cares about revenue, there might be sometimes where gaining a kind of gaining transactional rich snippets is always going to be beneficial for them. But in terms of kind of the more informational content, of course, there's still sometimes where informational content can lead to transactions later down the line, so there can still be benefits to that. But there also may be some cases where you are kind of going to be attracting the wrong type of user, and it's probably not worth the resource you've got when you're agency side and you've kind of got the certain resource to obviously for each client. Is that going to be the right place for you to kind of spend that resource? Potentially not all the time. So it's important to kind of do your research and see what benefit that's going to provide to the client before going for these types of rich snippets, because sometimes it's going to take a little bit of work to obviously be able to achieve them. You're going to have to rank quite well before you start looking at achieving them in a lot of the senses, especially for featured snippets. So it's going to be quite important for us to be able to work out whether it's going to be beneficial for us to target that. But in most cases, it's going to be beneficial in a lot of cases for you to be able to look at achieving them.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to that, I mean, I'd just say it's just about weighing up your options. I mean, if you, at the beginning of a campaign strategy, work out where the priorities lie for, your client or the website you're working on, then you have more of an understanding as to, as you said, Lewis, whether you should be putting the resource in that area or not. I mean, if you have unlimited resource, then yeah, by all means go for everything. But if you don't have that type of resource and you've just got X amount of hours, then it's worthwhile you putting some time in and strategizing that accordingly, and going for what you need to go for first, and what is the priority for that client, what is the end goal. So yeah, completely agree with you, Lewis.
Great stuff. I think that leads us on to the next question, which expands on this a little bit further, which is when does your business benefit the most from rich snippets?
Yeah, so I'll dive into that one. So it really depends to start with what sort of business you are, whether you're an e-commerce site, whether you're more looking at lead generation. But initially, it benefits the most when you provide information that is valuable to your audience. So I think sort of the key to this point is knowing your audience quite well. So if we took some real life examples, so if you're a business that's e-commerce and you're solely focusing on products, then product snippet might be something that you go for as sort of the first option. If you otherwise are a recipe site and you provide new recipes every week, then recipe-rich snippet would be something of utmost benefit to your site in particular. But I think to sort of answer this question, you really need to dive down into understanding your audience, and looking at your site and sort of waiting out and seeing which rich snippet is going to be the most beneficial. Because as an overall, you can't really take all rich snippets and sort of consider, okay, which one's going to be benefiting. I think you have to weight them by what your site is and what you're initially trying to do. And then just to add on that, as I previously mentioned as well, so if you are a site that's looking at providing a high amount of information, then of course FAQ snippets is something that you'd probably go for and look to answer the potentially frequently asked questions within the search results itself if you do gain the FAQ snippet, which again, will result in most cases more clicks to the site anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's obviously worth looking at kind of volumes behind what you're going for the rich snippets for as well. So obviously if you're putting a lot of time and effort into gaining rich snippets for terms that aren't either relevant or don't have loads of volume behind them, then the click-through rate that you're getting is not going to make a massive difference to the site. If it's something that's getting searched 20 times, for example, then is it worth putting hours of resource into gaining a rich snippet for that? Probably not. So it is going to be a case of kind of having a little look at the benefit and the potential that you can get from the rich snippet and achieving it before going ahead and obviously putting resource into that area. Like I say, it's not to say you're not going to have benefit from ranking for some of like the lower search terms as well. There will be benefit, but it's a case of, again, the effort level of needing to achieve that to the reward that you're potentially going to receive from it. So it's an important thing to look at the beginning as well.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, risk of going off on a slight tangent, is also understanding how search volume transfers into clicks. So whilst we said like rich features pick up a disproportionate amount of clicks and pick up more clicks, they still don't. Nothing picks up 100% of clicks. So there's always no ranking position or feature will get you 100% of clicks. So whilst it will increase your clicks, you also need to understand, as Lewis and Harold were saying, about search volumes as well, and if it's worth going for them. You're not going to get 100% of that search volume. If you hold a featured snippet, you're probably going to get about, it varies depending on the search term, but probably around 40 to 50% would be a good estimate of that search volume. So you need to factor that in as well to consider, is it worth putting the effort in to go after that? You're not going to get all that. So if you've got, it's a keyword, let's say you're going for a keyword that has 1,000 searches a month. If you hold that featured snippet, you might get 400 to 500 visits from that. You're not going to get the 1,000. So that needs to be factored in as well.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly that. So yeah, leading nicely on to the next question, which is what strategies and tactics can you implement to target rich snippets?
I mean, I can give that one a go. I guess it's quite broad, but there's so much you can do. So, I mean, there's questions to ask before even going into it, to be honest. But I mean, to start off with, it's worthwhile utilizing tools, like, as an example, SEMrush. When you're trying to gain some feature snippet, try looking at, things like your competitors, see what terms they're potentially coming up for some snippets. And then maybe try and replicate what they've done, but to a higher standard or a higher quality. For example, you could go onto a page and it could have 200 words on it, and Google's decided, I want to give them a featured snippet because they've answered a question. But maybe it's because there's not much competition for it. Maybe there's not many experts in that area. So you could potentially, take that opportunity, create content that's to a higher standard, maybe add some imagery that your competitor hasn't got. Do whatever you can to create a high quality page, because ultimately it doesn't matter, in some cases it doesn't matter what content you actually put on there. Sometimes it could be a case that it's about other things, like it could be about your site speed, the quality, if you've got technical errors, it could be so many different areas essentially. So what you need to do is basically try and create the best page you can for Google search results, because in most cases, if you're not coming up on that first page, generally, you're more than likely not going to gain that feature snippet anyway. So you need to optimize for Google search results whilst trying to gain the featured snippet and not just go for a featured snippet. So yeah, definitely, utilize tools, look at what competitors are doing, also strategize accordingly. Like I mentioned earlier, maybe create a document, work out where your priorities lie and what your goals are, so that everything is organized accordingly. But it's just trying to stay on top of everything. But at the same time, if you are going for featured snippets with your strategy, or any sort of rich snippets with your strategy, ultimately the idea of that is to try and gain clicks. So if you are strategizing around that, you also need to think about what your page is offering once you gain that. So if someone clicks through to your page, and I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, so I'll try and cut this short. Just make sure that the page that you're leading people towards from them snippets is a high quality page that has things like call to actions, or some sort of stability, or something that's going to add quality to your user actually hitting that page, to allow yourself or your client to gain inquiries, sales, whatever their end goal is. Otherwise you may just be wasting a lot of resource.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And just to kind of add on to that, I say, is obviously Google's not always gonna provide rich snippets for the same thing. So what works for one rich snippet is not necessarily going to work for another one. So it is important to, like I say, do the research and see what currently holds that rich snippet. If it's something that that's already got a rich snippet that you're not in, or like a featured snippet that you're not in, then it's a good idea to kind of have a little look at what is being preferred and why that is obviously achieving the rich snippet, and then basing it off of that. Like I say, it's not a case of saying, okay, we're going to go for a rich snippet for all of these terms, let's do the same thing on all of these pages, because it's not going to work for everything, and it's not going to be a successful strategy for you. So yeah, definitely doing the research and looking at what's being preferred at that point of going for it is very important. Great stuff. So the next and final question we've got then is, how long does it typically take to see the impact of a rich snippet after implementing any of your changes?
So it will, like most things, it will vary depending on the type of rich snippet, but you can roughly group the type of rich features into sorry, I just realized I keep on swapping between rich snippet and rich features, just not to confuse anybody. They are the same thing, it's just a different name, sometimes called rich results as well, but yeah, they are all the same thing. Rich features, rich snippets, rich results all mean the same thing. But you can roughly group them into two groups. There's ones controlled by structured data and ones that are more content based. So both will, neither of them are instant in terms of when you'll start seeing the results. So you've got to wait for Google to crawl and index your site. So Google goes through its normal cycle of, you make a change on your website, Google crawls it to see it, it then updates its index, and then you start to see the results come through because it's live in Google's results. So the ones controlled by structured data are normally a bit quicker, because they're normally pretty much instant. As soon as Google crawls your site, it will then add whatever feature on. Once it sees the structured data, it will just add it straight into your result in the index, and boom, the results. And then you'll start seeing the benefits from them, because it doesn't really affect the index. It just adds an extra element onto your result, like review stars or something like that. The more content-based ones can take a little bit longer, because Google's got to crawl your website, it's got to see it, and then it's got to update its index. And Google is constantly fiddling with its index and moving things around and adjusting. I'm sure, as most people that have anything to do with SEO and online know, that result rankings often fluctuate and change and move around. So it's constantly updating it. So it can take a little while until you capture that featured snippet position. And like was mentioned earlier, you've got to rank pretty well already to get that featured snippet. So you might create content that would capture the featured snippet, but then you've got to wait for Google to recognize the improvements in the page and push your rankings up to high enough to then qualify for it. So it can take a little while. In general, Google's going to crawl most sites either weekly or bi-weekly, or some point in that, and it varies by popularity. The more popular the site, the more often it gets crawled by Google, going down to, I'm sure there are media sites out there that are really popular, crawled practically continuously. But generally, most sites, somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks for Google to crawl it. And then, like I say, structured data controlled snippet features, going to be pretty much instant. Content features might take a little bit longer, but if it's 3 to 4 weeks later and you've not seen it, it's not worked and you need to look at something else. So definitely within 4 weeks you should have seen the results of that. Normally it's going to be a bit quicker. Normally most sites probably around the 2-week mark, but allow a bit more time just in case Google's being a bit slow on your site. But definitely, if by 4 weeks you've not seen the results, it's not happening, and you need to go. You need to review and do something and try something else.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, once you have made the changes to the site and you're happy with them, recommend using Google Search Console to force crawl that URL as well, to try and put it in the priority index. And then obviously it's going to get crawled a little bit quicker, and then hopefully you'll start to see changes being picked up a little bit quicker. And then you can obviously review it over a couple of weeks to a month's time and kind of see where it's at. And if obviously the changes have worked, but something that I'd recommend doing, not just for featured snippets, for all changes to pages, but included in the featured snippet changes that you're making.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great shout. And just to speed things up a little bit, if you are comfortable with using Search Console, just go in there and ask Google to crawl it. That normally speeds things up a bit and normally gets your page crawled within sort of 48 hours from that point.
Great stuff. So yeah, that is all we have time for today. So thank you everyone for joining us on this absolute on air. It's been great speaking to everyone and getting everyone's input on the questions. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and yeah, look forward to speaking again soon.
Pleasure as always, Lewis.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.